Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 196, titled Seattle and Chill. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios up in North Jersey in an undisclosed location at the Bunker and at the Bunker in South Jersey. Again, an undisclosed location. Unless you pay me some big bucks, I can tell you exactly where Nick Villano is. Pucksandpitchforks.com. Yeah. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network as we are approaching 500,000 downloads. Remember, woo! February 25th is the 500,000 party. We were discussing in the Andy Green room who's going to be there amongst the Let's Go Devils podcast, special guests. People are already booking their airline tickets, getting tickets for February 25th when the Devils take on the Philadelphia Flyers. Nick, it's going to be a big event, but we've got a great guest tonight, Dan Rice of pucksandpitchforks.com. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing great. I'm rushing through these. We had a little bit of technical difficulty with my situation, so we had to fix that before we went live. So now I'm rushing to get through the Facebook and the Twitter, and well, that's it. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to talk to Dan. We haven't talked to Dan in a little bit. He's been covering the team as our beat reporter, Pucks and Pitchforks' beat reporter. So it's time to get him on. He wrote a very controversial article a couple of days, or I think it was about a week ago, about Pavel Zacha. And then Pavel Zacha signed an extension. So a lot of Pavel Zacha talk we're going to have. Not a lot. A little bit of Pavel Zacha talk. But we're also going to talk about, I mean, I want to see. He's covered this. This is his 10th season. I want to see if he's seen anything like Jack Hughes on the team before. I want to see if how excited he is about the goaltending situation and kind of like seeing where he thinks this team is going to go. So it's going to be a fun interview in about a minute. Because we're late. My fault.
What do you mean we? Do you have a mouse in your pocket?
Have a mouse in my pocket?
Sorry, that's just a corny joke. Somebody.
Is it like there's something in my pocket for you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do I need to call
we.
HR?
You said we. Anyway. Yeah, let me get our next guest on. I'm seeing like people are Max is going to the 500,000 party. I'm still planning this. Yeah, I'm still planning to have an unlimited supply of sangria. Yes. And working on the booze and all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure we don't run out because there's going to be a lot of people at American Whiskey. But, all right. Well, why don't you talk?
I love free sangria.
Yeah.
Is it free sangria? It's free for me, right?
Of course it is. You're part of the podcast. All right. Well, let me get Dan.
Okay, go get Dan. I'm going to start tweeting about free sangria. Yeah, I mean, listen, the 500K party, I'm going to be there in person. Come see your boy, Nick Villano, pucksandpitchforks.com at the 500,000 party. That's going to be an incredible night. February. Wait, did he reveal the date? I don't know if he revealed the date. So I'm not going to be the jerk who reveals the date. I think he did, but I'm going to wait and make sure that he did. I'm so excited to talk about Dan Rice. I'm going to start. I want to know what I do want to know what he thinks of Jack Hughes because this is borderline ridiculous. I mean the fact that he's the one who scored with what was it like 6 seconds left? That he's the one that scored with 6 seconds left to send the Devils to overtime, and then they won a shootout. This team actually won a shootout. It's wild. I can't believe this team. And a lot of people are making the point that people don't believe that this team will ever lose. It's kind of the opposite of where we were just a couple weeks ago. This fan base was in the dumpster fire in December. By the time Christmas happened, everyone was sad. And then there's the holidays, and everybody gets sad during the holidays, but Devils fans were especially sad. Now, we're happy again. All those Twitter accounts that did nothing but complain, they're not doing it anymore. It's wild. There's hope There's promise. And I will put a little rain on that parade. I don't know why this team can't win at home anymore. And then they go on the road and don't ever lose. Why is that happening? We kind of touched on it last week, me and Sam. But why is that happening? I need to know why that's happening. So they kind of need to figure out what the difference is between the home and road splits before we get actually excited about where this team is. But for now, let's celebrate. Let's go crazy, baby. Let's go. What are they? 18-2-1 on the road? 18. They've won 18 of 21 games on the road. It is a ridiculous record. Now let's bring that back home. Sam, you're back.
I'm back. Do you need to finish up before we get our next guest on?
We're good.
Oh, we're good? Well, he and I were talking in the Andy Green room over the phone because I was telling him about the February 25th $500,000 party. And
so you didn't reveal the date. Good. I was like, wait, I'm about to be the jerk who reveals the date. But then I was like, I think you revealed the date. Never mind. Go on. Move on.
Oh, it's no mystery. But anyway, the guest we're having on, good friend of the podcast, his name is Dan Rice from pucksandpitchforks.com. You can find him on Twitter at dricehockey. Dan, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you tonight?
We're doing great, Dan. It's a good time to be a Devils fan again. It was sad in December. It's not sad anymore.
Yeah, I was just thinking while I was listening to you guys do the intro, like, I know I've been on the show a number of times, and forgive me for not knowing how many, but I don't think I've been on the show when the team has been playing this well, like, right? I mean, the last couple of years have been pretty lean, right? And the high points have been pretty far and few in between, but this is nice. It's kind of rarefied air. It's nice to cover a team that's doing well for once in a while.
Dan, the only time I could think of is when we had you on right after the Nikita Gusev, trade.
Okay.
The trade you famously broke, but we brought you on.
I did.
I think you remember the excitement that the fan base had that offseason. Getting Nikita Gusev was basically like the cherry on top. Sam, you have a question?
Not a question, but a statement. Dan, when you came on that podcast, like probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I swear to you, one of our podcast fans approached me at American Whiskey after our post-game podcast and remembered that podcast, everything about it. I mean, I kind of forgot about it, about Gusev.
I kind of did too.
But he remembered everything, and he even remembered when I talked about beef, that I'm a little concerned about beef, and he said, that podcast, everybody that was on that podcast, including you, Dan, was like, are the same issues that's happening today that we were talking about it 4 years ago. Can you believe that? That they actually remember that podcast?
Yeah, that is pretty wild. Yeah, that was a fun time, right? Like, there's, we've had these down years, right? These really lean years, but for me, it's kind of been highlighted by like certain eras, and definitely the Gusev era was one era. There was the era slightly before that, I guess, when we had the Corey Schneider versus Keith Kincaid crowds battling it out all over the place. So we've had to focus on other things because the winning wasn't really there. But now the team is doing well and they're winning, and it's really hard to nitpick at them right now. Like, they're, okay, so the record at home isn't maybe what you want it to be, but I'll take a good road team any day of the week. You walk into another team's building and steal the life out of it. Like, that's ideal, and you're going to win a lot of hockey games that way, and that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the Devils are in a good spot right now. And most of it is because of Jack Hughes. I mean, and he literally won them the game, or he sent it to overtime against San Jose in their last game in miraculous fashion. I think it was about 6 seconds left. So, Dan, let me ask you this. You've been on the beat for 10 years. Have you ever seen anything like what Jack Hughes is doing while covering the Devils?
I'm just to slightly correct you. I've actually been doing it for almost 20 years.
20? I'm sorry.
dating back to when I started with Stan Fischler. But in that time, like I do remember Zach Parise coming into the league and really making an impact, and that's for me that's sort of comparable. But Jack is kind of on another level, I think, and I think he's going to go down as as long as he doesn't get hurt or anything like that, anything crazy happens, like he's going to have a really, really good career. And he's only, 21 right now? Like, I remember even talking to you guys, like, over the course of the last couple of years, just saying, just wait, just let him mature a little bit and grow. And not only in his game, but just as a person and as a turn from a kid into a man, like, when he starts to get a little bit of strength and you're starting to see it where he's not getting knocked off the puck, or he's learning how to avoid getting knocked off the puck, and he's trusting his shot, which he obviously worked a lot on, and that's just going to add to his repertoire, because I think, at least for me, like I always kind of looked at him as more of a passer, and now he's showing you that he can beat you both ways. So good luck figuring out how to slow him down, because nobody's really been able to do that lately.
Yeah, and you love to see that. You love to see your superstars being able to score, because there's a lot. I mean, there's so many superstars who are just setting people up, the Joe Thornton type, who are getting 60, 70 assists a year. But that's and like you said, we thought that was what Jack Hughes was going to be. This year, he's like, you keep putting me in a line with Eric Holla, I guess somebody's got to score here, and he's taking the bull by the horns and he's doing it. There's been a lot of discourse about what this means for his future. Is this what he's going to be, or is there another level beyond this for him? What are your thoughts? Is this his quote-unquote peak? And his peak could last a long time. If he's this for the next 7 years, I don't think anybody's complaining, but just out of curiosity, do you think there's another level here?
Yeah, and yes, sign me up if he does this for the next 7 years, but I do think there is going to be another level. And, and the game is, hockey is, especially in the NHL, it's constantly evolving, right? And I kind of pegged him as kind of like you said, like a Joe Thornton type player, where he's going to get the 70 assists and maybe 25 to 30 goals, or 80 assists and 20 goals. But, it might just be the situation with the players that he has right now, and maybe in the future he won't have to shoot as much, because he's going to have better wingers or better goal scorers playing around him. That kind of remains to be seen. I'm actually in the camp. Like I enjoyed seeing him play. I liked having him with Hall on that line, just for the sheer fact of Hall has taken all those faceoffs, and that's just kind of like one less thing Jack has to worry about, and he's focused on just shooting and scoring and creating plays and worrying about finding ways to get free and get away from defenders. And, it obviously was working for a while, but it also shows that they have a lot of good flexibility with their roster. And that's another thing that they really didn't have, kind of going back to the last couple of years. It's guys have shown where they can move the lines around to change things up, and it works. It's been working. They're coming back in some of these games. I think the Edmonton game went in early November. That was kind of one of the first ones where they kind of really tweaked things, and it really sparked the team, and they won, whatever it was, 13 in a row. So, I see Jack is just going to keep getting better and better, and who knows what 4 years from now, what kind of players are going to be around him, right? Like we can't predict that. You think you have an idea of there's going to be a core, but some of those I don't want to say ancillary. I don't know what just kind of supplemental kind of players, like those will probably change over the course of years, because no team ever stays the same from year to year, even if it is 3 or 4 changes. That's kind of what the Devils did this year, which is another reason why it's like, wow, like, they only really changed a couple of players. It's just a lot of guys just kind of taking that next step and kind of manning up and just being tired of getting beat down all the time, right? Like at some point you got to just step up and say, like, enough is enough, and let's do something about this. And they've shown the ability to do that through more than half the season. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that there is a distinct difference in the attitude of this team. It was, and we kind of saw that. We talked to the guy who talked to Severson a couple weeks ago. His name's escaping me, but from the New York Times, the guy who had Severson say, like, there was some guys in the room. It was different. Now there's a different attitude, and I think that has to do with a lot of things. And winning. I like to say that winning begets winning. You know, if the Devils went, 500 in October, I don't think they're winning 13 games in a row in November. I think that winning begets winning. So getting off to a decent start helped them go out, set the world on fire in November.
Oh, definitely.
And just looking at the record now, even after that terrible December, they're still second in the Metro. I think they're 1 point behind Carolina. So looking at that,
they didn't drop too far at all. They stayed in the mix. They were picking up a point here and a point there and a win here, and that cushion allowed them to. Nobody really passed them other than Carolina, right? So.
Yeah, they stayed in second place this whole time, and now Carolina's going through a little bit of a slump type thing, so that allowed the Devils to get back into this race, and now it's what we thought the Metro was going to be this whole time. It's a dogfight. Every single spot in the Metro is up for grabs. But looking at this team as a whole, just looking at everything they're doing to get them to second place, what has been the biggest surprise for you, Dan?
Probably the consistency with the goaltending, and that was one of the things that during the winning streak, it was they were always just kind of getting those easy saves that sometimes the last couple of years they weren't getting, and and that's just the facts. Like Vanasek, when he took over, especially when Blackwood got hurt and Schmid played a little bit, but he was making the routine saves that keep teams in games and allow them to kind of gain their footing and get their confidence. And then when they went into December, they kind of lost that a little bit. And again, they were still good enough where they were picking up at least a couple of points. It wasn't a total 0 of a month, right? And they stayed in the race. It definitely allowed them to tread water, for lack of a better phrase. And I've been impressed with especially with Palat when he was out too. Like for them to kind of go on that streak it's really interesting. And then it's just kind of like, you get him back, and that's kind of like an early trade deadline addition, and you didn't have to give anything up. I really like the veterans that they added, the Hallers, the Smiths, the Vanasek, and maybe Vanasek's not really a veteran, but a guy who just never really got a fair shot. Was kind of always in like a timeshare, and that's kind of what he's in now. But that's also good competition, and at this stage of his career, and for Mac as well, like it's good that they're pushing each other. And Mac has come back from injury. He's been pretty good, and that's kind of surprised me as well too. Like, that they're set up to, as long as they don't like really tank, they're going to be in the playoffs, and that's an exciting prospect to think about.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing, is that the Rock hasn't seen playoff hockey in, what is it, 5 years? Wow, it's been 5 years. That's wild. And this fan base, as annoying as it can be sometimes, they deserve it. I mean, there's a lot of good fans in this fan base, and it deserves to see playoff hockey. So excited to see that. And I just want to look at the standings, kind of get an update. The Devils are 4 points ahead of the Rangers with the game in hand. And then it drops off from there. They're 7 points ahead of the Capitals. They're 11 points ahead of the Penguins and the Islanders, and that's where it kind of falls off from there. Funnily enough, the Flyers are only 5 points away from the Islanders, which is I thought they were a little bit lower than that. But anyway, point being, the Devils, I think the big thing is nobody wanted to fall below the Rangers in the standings. I think that was the scary thing, is that the Rangers were surging, the Devils were plummeting, but righting the ship at this time allowed, now they got that 4 point cushion with the game in hand. So if they beat Seattle, they can make that 6. I think that's the big thing. Is that something that you think that fans still do, kind of scoreboard watch with their rivals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not as much of a fan as I used to be, when I first got into this and doing this. Now I just kind of root for the team to do well because it makes my job a little easier. But all kidding aside, like I know fans, they hate watch. The Rangers, if they have the opportunity, they're going to watch the Rangers and hope that they lose and dance on their grave every time that they get. That's sports, right? That's fandom. Like I kind of do that football wise, is where I'm a big fan of football now, and that's so I get all that. And fans, they have suffered for a few years. I always kind of temper that with, to have, at least the younger generation of fans, right? Like the older fans, like they've experienced the winning, and I always kind of look back at like, this team's, just for, I guess Toronto is the easy example. Like they haven't won jack anything and since there were 6 teams. So cry me a river, some of the Devils fans. But on the other hand, I get it. Like, 5 years, especially everything the world has been through the last 5 years, it feels like 10 years. Everything is just kind of exasperated. And so I'm happy. It's like I said, I don't want to I think they're going to eventually, make the playoffs this season. I don't think they're going to kind of completely go in the tank. And I'm kind of looking forward to what the atmosphere is going to be like. And it should be memorable as of now, right? It sets up where they would play the Rangers, and that's always going to be a wild situation. So we'll see how things progress as the season goes on. I just think for Devils fans, you just don't want to fall out of that maybe 2-3 slot, right? Like 1, 2, 3 in the division, you don't want to fall anywhere below that. This way, you're ensured that where you are is where you are. You're not battling with these other teams that are trying to climb up, and you don't want to let them get a sniff of you. Like you want to stay in that cushion spot, and then if they're at the deadline and sitting in a good spot, like I don't think they really have to make a crazy move. Like I know fans are gonna want to make a splashy addition, and hey, let's go for it. But like you have to stay the course. Like you can't just start like selling off prospects to get a guy that you think is going to push you to the cup this year. You want to win, not just this year, but you want to win for the next couple of years. And I want to see what this group, this new young core, what they can do with, get some playoff games under their belt. Because 5 years ago, like how many guys are still left from that team, really? I mean, so it's a completely different group, and it's going to be a completely different experience as well, I think.
So, Dan, are you saying the 3 trades the Devils should make for Timo Meier that I wrote on Monday is you're not agreeing with that? Is that what you're saying?
If you're gonna acquire him and sign him, I'm assuming, right, he's a UFA in the offseason. So if you're gonna bring him in,
well, he's an RFA he's an RFA with a $10 million qualifying offer. But so it's take
so
that for what
you're
it
gonna
is.
you might have to move some things around. But if that's a guy that you believe is gonna be a part of your core for the next 5 or 6 years on either Jack or Nico's wing, go for it 100%. But don't do it for a guy that's gonna possibly walk this off season and go sign with the Rangers or something like that, and you're only paying for you give up a prospect and a pick for a guy that plays 20 games for you. We'll see though. We'll see what happens. I would love for them to get Timo Meier. I mean, but you mentioned that qualifying offer. That's something that you're going to have to move some pieces around to make that work, most likely,
That's
right?
a big number. I can't imagine you wouldn't just go for the extension and pay him somewhere in the 7 to 8 range instead of paying him 10 for a season. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not in Tom Fitzgerald's head. He's surprised me before, but I feel like that's a number that's just hard. But you mentioned, you kind of mentioned passing Vitek Vanacek earlier. Just a quick assessment. What's your assessment of his play? Is this something that's like, is he the number one like in this league? Is that what you're seeing?
I think so, and I think maybe part of it is like there's maybe a little bit less pressure on him than there was in Washington, where it's with Ovi and everything. The Caps have been a good team for a little while here, right? And stepping in after Holtby is gone and kind of living up to that standard, and having that timeshare with Samsonov. Maybe this is just like the kind of perfect spot, and sometimes that's what you need for things to work out that way. Like, and he seems like he's a pretty quiet, laid back guy, and maybe this situation fits him a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It just didn't seem like he fit in Washington. There was just something off. I don't know if it was Laviolette. I don't know if it was the competition with Samsonov. I don't know, but it just didn't seem like he fit, which is a perfect jump to our next topic. Fit. And finding the best fit for a player who's talented. And that's going to bring us to Pavel Zacha, who's been in the news this week. It started off when you wrote about it, because you wrote about it when the Bruins came to town. You did a piece on Zaka, what he thinks of the team, what he thinks of his new team, how it is to move on, yada, 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 who he's still friends with. Really great piece. That's up right now on pucksandpitchforks.com. But I'm curious, after writing that piece, talking to Pavel directly, and then seeing the extension that he signed, what were your thoughts? What was your what did you think of that when that news came out?
Number one, I'm happy for him. He's a nice guy. Like he took a lot of heat and a lot of crap, and some deservedly. When you get picked that high, that comes with the territory. But he's a nice guy, and I think he's a guy that was, you never really question his effort. He just never really was able to kind of put everything together all at once, and kind of was just kind of topping out at whatever it was, 35, 45 point seasons maybe, right? And again, kind of like the same thing with Vanacek. Like he moved to a spot now where he's got a couple of Czech guys on the team that makes, it does make a difference. Like,
okay,
I don't know if as Americans, I don't know if we understand that to the extent that, like, he granted he had friends here, right? He had Jesper Bratt, Nico, but when you have countrymen, it's a little bit different. Like you can speak your language, and he seems to have really found a home there and a good spot where he's playing with good players, makes him look a little bit better and makes his life and job a little bit easier. And it gives them flexibility where it's a guy where they can kind of move up and down their lineup. And that's one thing that I overheard, that coach talking about that second night that Boston was in town. He really likes that flexibility of having Zaka. He can play on the wing or at center at times if somebody's hurt, out of the lineup in the penalty box, whatever the situation is. And for him to get that extension, like, that's good for him. That's kind of about what I expected he would get, and I think it worked out for both sides. Like everybody kind of got what they needed, and the impact, like we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, with that Haula has had, his ability to win face-offs, his ability to play in shorthanded situations, and create opportunities with his speed for other players is just hockey knowledge. Like he's just a good guy to have around, and he's been a part of successful teams. And that's something that this group sorely needed, and that's why they brought in him, and that's why they brought in Palat, and even Vanacek to an extent. Like he was around those good Capitals teams. He just wasn't the guy in net. It was Holtby at when they were doing great. But it's all experience that all these younger guys really didn't have, and all guys that this young group can lean on. And obviously it's been working, right? So far throughout the season. So good for Zaka. He's in a good spot. Hopefully he doesn't score many more goals against the Devils like he ended up doing the night that I was there, the one after Christmas. I think that was the empty net goal. So he, like I said, he was a nice guy. He seemed genuinely touched by the reception from fans, the video tribute and all that stuff. And like Scott Wedgwood, who I talked to earlier in the season, it's not hard feelings. These guys understand it's business. And when they come back here, these are guys that were here for 5, 6, 7 years. So this is a little bit of home for them. And I'm sure they enjoyed coming back and seeing a lot of the people behind the scenes. And that's another thing. All these guys that I've talked to that have come through the last year or so, they always mention the staff with the Devils. Whether it's the PR staff or the trainers, even just the people that work at the Prudential Center, the security guards and stuff like that. Like you're somewhere for that long a time, you get to know everybody. You see them 45, 50 times a year, right? So it becomes kind of like a family or almost like you're kind of going to school, and and then you come back from after summer break and you're excited to see everybody. That's kind of what it's been like for a lot of these guys to come back and at least just say hi to everybody and compete against some of their former teammates, which they always say is a little bit weird. But at the end of it, it's a game, and you want to have fun and you want to beat your buddies, and yeah,
and that's the fun part. I know you're working on a bigger piece, so we won't do any plugs. But do you have any predictions for tomorrow night against Seattle? You think there's Is there any letdown possibilities because of the last game of the road trip, or do you think they're going to come out firing on all cylinders after that San Jose game?
No, I mean, I think they came out a little slow in the Sharks game, to be honest. Like, they did get the early goal, and then the weird delay and all that, but they were getting outshot, I think, pretty good early on. So with the 2 days off in between games, they should be fresh. They know Seattle's a good team. That they're not going to get surprised by that. I'm most curious to see if Bastion is back in the lineup, because then you get the obvious angle of the Bastion revenge game. That was a shameless plug. That was another article that I did for Pucks and Pitchforks, talking with Bastion about everything that he went through. Going through the expansion draft process and kind of being shocked that he was the guy that was selected, moving halfway across the world, and he did complain that it rained every day, but I was like, come on, dude, like it's Seattle, like what did you expect? Like, but he's we're all happy he's back. I think he's a really important player, and when they kind of went a little haywire in December was kind of coincided with him coming out of the lineup. So excited to see he's obviously getting closer. And that's the natural storyline. And then Seattle comes into town, I think, after the All-Star break. So, we played them twice in a short span here. So it'll be interesting to see how these two teams match up.
I wonder if there'll be a video tribute for Nathan Bastion. I don't think so, Dan. I don't think there's going to
Probably not.
It would be short if there was. But Dan Rice, pucksandpitchforks.com, our beat writer, coming on the Let's Go Devils podcast. Dan, thanks for spending some time with us tonight. We'll have you on again soon.
Thanks, boys. Always appreciate it. Hopefully the Devils play well tomorrow night and reward us all for staying up a little bit later than normal. And I look forward to coming back on with you guys again.
Sounds good. We look forward to it, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.
That is Dan Rice from pucksandpitchforks.com. I invited him to our February 25th $500,000 party. He's going to be there. You better be there. We need a little Dan Rice in our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I in the corner of my eye, I started to kind of, just because we've been talking about trades, and I was like, I had Cap Friendly up. I'm like, let me see what the trades are in Cap Friendly. And Sam, they get wild. They get wild at Cap Friendly. The trade that I saw, Alex DeBrincat, it's like, oh, interesting. I like Alex DeBrincat. For Dawson Mercer and John Marino.
Not going to happen.
Well, no, thank you. I'm going
not going to
hard
happen.
Pass on all that. I appreciate you, Senators, doing your best Vancouver Canucks impression, but not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Absolutely not.
The trades are wild. And I love doing this. I'll probably do this within the next week or two, is I just go on Cap Friendly, and I just pick the 5 bat you-know-what trades. Oh, I can say bat crazy. Oh, no, wait. Never mind. The bat crazy trades is what we'll call them. And I just write about it. I'm like, oh, where were you going with this? And it's fun. It's, we're making fun of people a little bit, but not too much that it's a problem. That's where I'll go with it. Man, the trades are wild. They're wild.
Yeah, you read the rumors. You talk about the rumors. There's a lot of virtual fistfights online about those rumors. I mean, even if I propose anything on this podcast, you get bashed. It's a very polarizing subject when they talking about NHL trade rumors, whether it's spelled RUMORS or RUMOURS. It's still the same. Very toxic.
Rumors.
Oh, I don't even know how to spell. You know what I'm talking about. Like
Rumors.
Like colors and colors.
Well, that's British. Are you British?
No, but the Canadians are pretty much British.
Wait, that's British Columbia. I lost it. It's gone. See, I have it for like 3 words, and then it's gone. Are you British? Oh, there. That was pretty good.
G'day, mate.
That's Australian.
Same
You're
difference.
trying to do the British. We're off the rails, guys. We're off the rails. Let me ask you, Sam.
Yep.
So I did write about Timo Meyer and the trades that would happen for Timo Meyer.
I've seen the comments about it. But go ahead.
Oh no! What are the comments?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to read them on air. I mean, they're always
roasting me.
Yeah, they're always bashing Nick Villano. It's like, oh, like one guy was like, oh, you know, he didn't. Now I know why he didn't hire me as a writer. But
I literally hire everyone. So whatever you're saying, you're a liar. I've hired every single person, unless the only people that I don't hire are people under 18 because I'm not allowed.
It could be. I read a comment today on it. I'll find that comment. It's on YouTube. Nope. Don't mind. Oh, here it is. It's on YouTube. The screen name Devils fan _13. You want me to read it?
Because then I won't hire you.
Yeah, you want me to read it? I'll read
sure.
it.
Why not?
Can you stomach it? Dude, tell Nick Villano to stop writing for Pucks and Pitchforks. Those trade proposals for Timo Meyer were stupid AF! Exclamation point. I see why he didn't want me writing for you guys years back. ... Competition, period. LOL, period.
I've never denied one person who's, again, maybe he applied 7 years ago, Sam.
Maybe you weren't the editor back then.
Yeah, maybe you did it before I was the editor. But
yeah.
Sorry, dude. I apply now if you think you're better than me.
Well, Felix,
like honestly.
Felix is asking, how much you paying, Nick?
I mean, we pay. It's a compensation rate. It's not. I don't pay people salaries. I pay people based on the. I don't pay. Well, okay. It's a complicated process. All fan-sided writers get paid. I think it's like $1 for every 1,000 views. It's a more complicated structure because it has to do with like where the views come from. Yada yada. It generally comes out to $1 per 1,000 views, and then I personally pay you $1 per 1,000 views for every writer who gets over 10,000 views. Which, if you write like 4 good articles, you should get, usually one hits. You get that 10,000 views from that one article. But, once in a blue moon, if, they're not bangers. But if you're a consistent writer, I usually give you at least the $10. But, yeah, so you end up getting $2 per every 1,000 views, roughly. Sometimes again, if you get a bunch of views from India, it's not going to work out to the same. But that's very rare.
Hey, but India, the Let's Go Devils podcast is the #1 Devils podcast in India. I've seen the chartable. I've seen the ratings.
Well, not anymore because they probably took this as an offensive remark, and that wasn't it. It's Japan, it's China, it's anywhere that's not Australia, England, Ireland, Canada, Mexico, or the U.S. gets paid on a different scale for some reason.
And you pay USD, right? Because we have a lot of Canadian fans.
Yeah, I pay in U.S. dollars.
Wow.
I pay through Venmo. Get yourself a Venmo.
Wow.
The company pays you in direct deposit, so you'll get bet you have a bank. We're on the same.
And I can verify that because I am a Pucks and Pitchforks contributor when I'm not working so hard. When I have time. Fair. Although we are coming to the anniversary of quadrupling down on the Lindy Ruff article, the infamous article where I plan to go back to that Twitter thread and just a year later just go after every single person that called me a lot of bad names on Twitter. Can't wait.
That's the thing now on Twitter. 6 or 7 times in the past 2 weeks, people have tagged me in opinions on Twitter from years ago. Like, why? Why are you holding on to this?
Oh.
I am not important enough for you to have this big of an opinion about my opinion.
I got to talk to like Catherine Bogart or Chris Westcott. I got to tell them, like, look, I got to show them my work and be like, I took one for the team for Lindy Ruff. Could I at least say hello to him and just shake his hand and have a beer with him and laugh about it? I should be that fan after, those fans chanted for him to go get fired. I deserve to have a beer with Lindy Ruff and say, hey, look, I know what it's like, Lindy. It was bad, but you were the only coach that I thought could coach this team. There was nobody else for this year. Nobody.
I'm probably not invited to that beer.
I'll put in a good word for you. Be like, okay. Lindy, my boy Nick, he finally admitted that I was right.
Although I will say this. I wrote an article way back in the day calling for John Hines' job, and I didn't feel good about it. So I don't write those anymore. So there's no written proof that I said anything bad about Lindy Ruff.
That is true. That is true.
Now, I may have written something about other coaches who could coach this team, but I never explicitly wrote for Lindy Ruff to lose his job.
Yeah, I don't think I really don't like about people's jobs. Like, I don't like people when people try to take my job or something like that. Like, you never talk about another person's money or career. You just don't do that. They don't do it to you, you don't do it to them. And it's easy in sports to just cancel out that coach or that referee and all that. But at the end of the day, they're human beings as well. Sometimes I would go off the rails, and then the next day I say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, and again, we're also human, so, these things happen. But, and that's we kind of went off the rails there. Because we were talking about Timo Meyer. I don't know how we got all the way here when we were talking about Timo Meyer. I do want to talk to you about one thing.
What?
Because I wrote a piece today, and it fell flat. And I kind of expected it to fall flat, but I think it'll gain traction later. But I wrote about why I think Miles Wood is going to be a playoff game changer. And why the Devils shouldn't even consider trading this man right now. He is in the stinker of stinkers, the cold streak that would make the icy tundra of Antarctica jealous.
Okay.
But I think that's why trade him now when when his value is at his lowest. Bastion's coming back. He's coming back tomorrow, I guess, right? That's the scuttlebutt.
I hope so.
That'll be huge. So. Huge for this team. And, give him a couple games to kind of get his feet under him, but I think that's going to be huge for the Devils. Get that BMW line back together. See if they can have a similar impact. Wood is the kind of guy that's going to score a goal late in a third period with a team down on a breakaway and is going to light the rock on fire. I think that Miles Wood is going to have at least one moment that you never forget. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Henriquez over level, but maybe remember Grant Marshall? You know Grant Marshall.
What, good friend of the podcast?
Yeah.
Grant Marshall?
A couple of those goals in 2003, and I'm not saying the Devils are going to win it all, but a couple of those goals in 2003, they're still marked in your memory bank. Claude Lemieux in 95, some of those goals that he scored, they were in the first and second and third round, but they were just iconic. He was so good. I remember John McClain scored a huge goal in 1995 on their way to winning the Stanley Cup. You remember, Valery Zelepukin scoring with seconds left to send the Rangers game to overtime. It's something like that. There's going to be a moment where it's not the biggest goal of the playoffs, but it's going to be a goal you don't forget.
You may be true. You may be right on it. I'm not going to disagree. I have a little bit of difference of not so much of opinion, but maybe not so much of that memorable part you're talking about with Miles Wood. But I think Eric Holla is going to break out like no other because honestly, everything except for finishing, he's done everything right as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think he's done. Eventually, it will fall. Like when the Devils were slumping there in their 6-game winless streak in middle of December, towards the end of that winless streak, they started to, their offense just weren't putting the puck in the net, but you knew eventually it was going to come. And it did. And now they're on a tear, especially on the road, where that offense is just unbelievable. Like they just don't quit. And Eric Holla, barring any unforeseen, injury or whatever, I just think that either he's just going to have a monster second half or towards late March to early April, something's going to happen. But once the playoffs start and New Jersey has clinched a berth and spot, that first round, we'll see a different Eric Holla. I think you're going to see someone like, I wouldn't say Claude Lemieux, because I use that example, but Claude Lemieux is like to the extreme. Maybe like a Randy McKay like performance in the playoffs where he's going to be everywhere on the ice. And he's going to have a lot of chances to put the puck in the net.
I could see it. There's got to be somebody. If the Devils are going to make even like a somewhat of a run, go to the second round, even a third round.
Even Bryce Salvador had a great run in 2012.
He did.
He did, didn't he?
And that was the thing, is that like when we signed him in that offseason and then gave him the captaincy, nobody was like upset about it.
Nope.
Like everybody's like, yep, let's do it. Everybody's excited. I remember that. And then, he got injured again, and that kind of, changed his
concussions, right? I think it was the concussions. Didn't he have that issue?
He had a concussion, but I thought it was a back issue. But maybe it was. Again, it's once you have a career that long, it's kind of a little bit of everything.
But I will tell you though, I watch Bryce sprint. Personally, watch him. It's great. I actually do this now when I go to the Devils games. I would go to the restaurant, and I'd see Bryce on the in between the benches, and then you kind of time him because he has to get to the infamous elevator that takes forever. And watching him sprint back to the studios for either Erica or Matt, and now it's Matt. Mm-hmm. It's like a pleasure watching him sprint. He's like a gazelle in a suit, just going like racing by. And, he's so focused, but he's still like a really nice guy where everyone's like, he's like, no, I got to go. I got to go. Like so nice, like flying right by lightning speed. If you ever go to the Prudential Center, go to the restaurant and just wait for him. Don't get in his way. Just watch him sprint in a suit like a gazelle.
That's funny.
It's such a pleasant stride that he's got.
And he's always been the nicest guy. He always tells me, he's like, "Come find me." I'm like, "Where are you?" And then he's working, so he doesn't text me back because like, he's like, he's Bryce.
Oh, Nick's fee dropped. Well, you know what? I'll tell you about Bryce Salvador. Anybody shaking Bryce Salvador's hand, like you see him at the arena, you shake his hand, he's like, he's such a gentle giant. He's like he doesn't know his own strength. That's Bryce Salvador. Such a nice guy, good friend of the podcast, even Grant Marshall as well, and Bruce Driver, and Nick is back. I think it's Nick. Are you back? I was stalling.
Did I force you to just start naming Devils players? Like what?
No. I started talking about if you ever shake Bryce Salvador's hand, it's he's like a gentle giant, and then also he doesn't know his own strength. He's like, ah, ah.
Yeah. You said shaking your hand. All I could ever think about when I think of Devil's Legends and shaking their hand is Ken Danico, because he's got the greatest handshake I've ever felt in my entire life.
Oh yeah, remember down in Tampa?
Oh yeah, the perfect amount of firm, but like not crushing your hand.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great time.
That was a great one.
I'm gonna tell. I don't know if I can do it, Nick, but I'm really gonna try to do it again. The back to back.
Tampa.
I'm talking about Cocoa Beach, Sandbar and Grill, Andrew's place. Andrew, a big fan of the Let's Go to Hell's podcast. There's a bar at Cocoa Beach, Florida, that's decorated with Let's Go to Hell's podcast gear and Devil's stuff in the middle of Florida, and that's Andrew Bunan's bar, and that's on the east side of Florida. So, I'm not going to go down to Sunrise. Been there, done that at Bahama Breeze. Instead, I'm just going to go to Cocoa Beach where they love us. It's like home. And when I went there, like, my sister witnessed this. It was like 50, 60 Devils fans just show up. And then there's all these other hockey fans. They're like, oh, somebody that knows hockey. Oh, we're going to go to his bar, the Sandbar and Grill in Cocoa Beach.
Wild story about Sunrise. I used to live in West Palm Beach. So, whenever the Devils came to Sunrise, I would go see them play the Panthers. I used to have a guy named Neil Kaplan who used to write for me. Former Devils scout, actually, has a Stanley Cup ring.
Really?
I have two. I know he has one. We happened to buy tickets 3 rows from each other. Or 2 rows from each other. I just saw him. I was like, oh. And, in West Palm Beach, there's not a lot of Devils fans, so I used to go by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting by myself, and I'm like, Neil? Like, he was 2 rows, and there was nobody there because it was the Panthers. And it was just wild. It's like, do you ever have that happen to you, Sam, where it's just like, how did this certain circumstances happen to where I'm sitting next to this guy or whatever,
Well, I'm trying to think of anything that's ever happened to me. I think the most surreal moment in my life going to a Devils game was when I went to Madison Square Garden wearing the Marty Brodeur gear. And I'm walking with all those goalie pads on at Madison Square Garden, no less. Devils Rangers. And guess who I bumped into in the elevator? Because, I had to leave in the elevator, right?
Yeah.
I never told this story. Alex Brooks. Remember Alex Brooks? He was sitting in the press box. He was a defenseman. He was like one of the 7th or 8th defensemen. And Alex Brooks looks. I actually have a picture with him. I got to find all this stuff so people don't think like I'm like fibbing like a politician, But no, it was Alex Brooks, and you're like, wow, he shook my hand and he knew who I was, and even though it's Alex Brooks, it was like it was a cool moment, you know.
Listen, all those moments are cool.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for plugs whenever you are. It's 9:30.
Yeah, plug away. Don't let me interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine. So Jersey Joe just wrote an interesting piece about why the Devils should slow play Luke Hughes and Simone Nemeth. No need to rush them. Let them come into the lineup when they feel like. I already plugged my articles. Miles Wood, playoff game changer. Timo Meyer, 3 trade proposals. I compared Jack Hughes to every one of the top 5 Hart Trophy candidates and see who is having a better season. It's an interesting exercise, and I can kind of make an argument for each one. Vinny Parisi wrote about the Devils sweeping the California trip after that crazy win against San Jose. David Holliday wrote a mid-season report card. We gave grades to every single player, and there's a couple surprises on there. Jonathan Bailey talked about depth scoring after that really great game by Dawson Mercer and Jesper Boquist the other night. And then just right before the podcast, David Williams put out a piece on looking ahead to tomorrow's matchup against the Kraken. So go check that one out. Go check out everything on pucksandpitchforks.com. We will post every single day that we possibly can. There's maybe like 2 exceptions a month, but it's few and far between. We're always posting. pucksandpitchforks.com. And then I'm going to have some I'll write something tonight. I don't know what, but yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a pat on the back. Job well done. This is what we do on this podcast. Give each other a pat on the back. I guess I'm going to plug this. It's going to be a triple header Happy Devils Thursday. You got Woo Report sometime in mid-morning. I'm going to do a mid-morning Woo Report just because I can. And then Game Day Live, Vinny Parisi and I will preview the game, the hottest podcast around. And then Devils After Dark are one of our last Devils After Dark, like real After Dark, Nick, where it's going to be probably 2 in the morning before this game settled. Scotty of Sirius XM, Liquid ML, and I will recap the game that was. Also, I want to thank all the listeners and viewers, and keep doing it if you haven't done it already. Please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, either on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Nick, let me tell you something. The reviews are just coming in, and they're just dripping in. We are now at 4.5 stars. We were like at 4.2 because a bunch of
5 stars, 5 stars, baby. Give me them 5 stars.
Spammers. One of the reviews forgot to mention Beer Baron. Now we just don't even call him Beer Baron anymore. We call him and Crew. And the inside joke is taking its life of its own. So thank you. And those are listening in the cars.
Did they mention me?
Oh, mentioned you, but didn't mention Beer Baron. Yeah.
Oh, poor Beer Baron.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know if it was just the Sunday Crew.
Nah. No, they mentioned Vinny, you. It is a great thing that our fans are doing. And one last but not least thing, thank you, the fans. I showed Nick Villano some of the numbers in the past 2 weeks. January is going to be a record month. November was our record month, and that was during like the streak, so to speak. But the month of January, we're on pace to top November. And those are a lot of downloads. And we may hit our 500,000 a little quicker than anticipated because we projected right around February 25th. We'll let you know. But thank you. And thank you for making us a part of your lives in your car or on the train or on the plane or wherever you are in this world, especially our good friends in the country of India and New Zealand, because they are great people and great Devils fans too. So that's all I have to plug, Nick.
We love to hear it. And we're getting close to that number. We really appreciate everybody downloading, listening, spending time with us.
Reading on pucksandpitchforks.com. Yep.
Commenting, yelling at me. Everyone yell at me. It makes me relevant.
Yeah, and if you want to criticize,
if
you want to criticize Nick Villano,
comments,
you can criticize Nick Villano on Twitter at PitchforksPuck. You can also tag the Let's Go Devils podcast at Let's Go Devils Pod. Felix, he's talking about crab legs. I'm in the mood for seafood right now. All right, time to go. Till next time, let's go Devils.